And welcome to episode 9 of RaiderZone Podcast via Microsoft Teams, brought to you by Raider Student Media, the sports team, as we still fight the pandemic, but we can still talk about all the sports going on. I'm Will Brianza, alongside me, Jacob Butar, Brendan Deviney, Alexandria Patron, and we are here to talk a full slate of sports from basketball, baseball, football, and let's go right into baseball, as not a lot has been happening as far as free agency goes in baseball, but a couple trades go down in this past week. We'll start with the Josh Bell trade, as the Washington Nationals received first baseman Josh Bell from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bell is a .261 hitter in his career with 86 home runs and 309 RBIs in his 5-year career with the Pirates. Basically traded to the Nationals just for a pitching prospect. A lot of people shocked by this, but we've seen the Pirates do this before. Brendan, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I mean, for the Nationals case, they're getting one of the power hitters that they kind of missed last year, the year after they won the World Series. They're getting a for sure power hitter in the middle of that lineup. Last year they kind of switched on and off between first baseman. Now you have a certified first baseman, something that they missed after Ryan Zimmerman retired. So he'll definitely be able to fill that void in Washington that they were missing. But Pittsburgh's case, just another veteran, another face of the franchise that they lose. In return, they get two top 10 prospects from the Nationals farm system, Will Crow and Eddie Eon, two pitchers. But they let go of so much talent, and their farm system isn't even that great to begin with. All they really have left is Cole Tucker, Adam Frazier, and Gregory Polanco. But that's pretty much it. I don't know where they're going with this rebuild, but they're definitely further behind than I thought they were going to be when they released Andrew McCutchen and traded him. Once that happened, you kind of knew that it was going to be a long rebuild, but it seems like it's taking forever in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and speaking off what you said, there's rumors that Joe Musgrave, their best pitcher, and Adam Frazier are both on the block as well. So I don't know where they're going with this. And as for the Nationals, you touched on Zimmerman. He pondered retirement. He actually did announce that he'll be coming back for the 2021 season, but you don't know what you're going to get with him coming off an injury. So I agree with you. Josh Bell is a huge piece to add to that first base spot when you don't know what you're going to get from an aging, injured Ryan Zimmerman, who now can be a role player that comes off the bench. He can play every other game for you. He can play every 5 games for you when Bell needs a rest, or he can be one of those pinch hitters. We know how big of a role pinch hitters play in the National League, especially if they continue, if they go back to the pitching hitting role. Last year, obviously, the NL had DHs for the first time in at least my lifetime. But if they go back to pitchers hitting, Ryan Zimmerman will play a huge role off the bench as far as that goes. Jacob, your thoughts on this trade?
So I think what Josh Bell showed last year is he's really streaky, because in 2019 he had such a great year. 2020 it really wasn't that good of a year for him, but that's still no reason really for the Pirates to give up on him. I agree. I don't think they know where they're going with the rebuild. It just doesn't make sense for me. In my opinion, he was probably your best offensive player when he's on his hot streaks. So to get the pitching prospects back, I mean, yes, it helps the farm system, but Josh Bell to me is too valuable just to get 2 pitching prospects back. And with the Nationals, it's just power, really. I mean, I don't think that it necessarily puts them back into contention late in October. It definitely might get them to October potentially, but I don't think it's just a huge move that's going to help them get back to the World Series.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt them. It's definitely going to help them a little bit. And if I'm a Pirates fan, I'm incredibly frustrated because I have no idea which way the franchise is going right now.
Yeah, and you talked about he was streaky in 2020, but in his 5-year career, 2020 has been the only year he was really streaky per se, and 2020 was also a year where there's a lot of adjustments. So, can you hold it against him? Maybe, but the Nationals definitely got a big piece coming their way, especially to join the likings of Juan Soto, a great pitching staff, and some other good players.
Yeah, and like how you said, like with the shortened spring training, that's probably definitely what affected him.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you just can't give up on a guy like that.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
He was producing so much for you before this season, and he just has one off year slightly, and you just give up on him. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Alex, your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I just don't really understand why the Pirates would let go of such talent. I mean, I understand they're trying to do this rebuild, but I'm with everybody. Like, I feel like they're digging themselves into this huge hole, and it's just going to be harder for them to get out of it. Because, I mean, if I were a fan of the Pirates, I'd be really frustrated right now because they just keep letting go of all these big names and these just power hitters, as Brendan put it. And I just feel like it's not going to help them in the end. I mean, on the flip side for the Nationals, I think it's definitely a good start for getting to where they want to be and winning another World Series potentially. So I feel like, again, gaining such great talent, I feel like it's a good start for them, but I think it is a huge loss for the Pirates.
Yeah, and I mean, I put the stats there in his 5-year career. So you gave up in 5 years. This is his average. You gave up an average guy of 261, 19 home runs, and 61 RBIs a year, or 62 RBIs a year. And those averages are taken down a lot because of 2020, where he only had 8 home runs and 22 RBIs because of the 60-game season. So to have 19 home runs and 62 RBIs as your average after a shortened season just shows the amount of power. He's going to put 20 out for you in a normal year. He's going to drive in 60 to 80. He can reach at 100 mark. He's done it before. I mean, he's even been in the MVP hunt 2 years ago. He's in the MVP hunt. I remember one game that he literally won for the Pirates. I was trying to go to the home run derby in Cleveland, and my buddy was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna go." And I said, "Josh Bell's about a home run right here," and he hits a home run. He's like, well, "How'd you call that?" I was like, "I don't know. I was just pulling it. I was just pulling your chain. I just was saying it because whatever." And I said, "If Josh Bell hits 3 home runs in this game, you have to go to the home run derby with me." He's like, "All right." Josh Bell ended up hitting 3 home runs, including a walk-off in that game. So I got to go to the home run derby. But it's just a guy that on any given day can literally win you ball games. And I think it's a huge piece for the Nationals. Like you guys said, I don't know if it's going to get them back into contention because they're fighting in not only the National League, but a tough National League East where you have the Braves, the Mets are on the rise. The Phillies still have a decent roster if they can just put it together. The Marlins made the postseason last year. So you're in a division where all 5 teams can make the playoffs. So that makes it tough. But it's definitely a big piece to add when you're uncertain of Ryan Zimmerman and you have Howie Kendrick retiring. Just you don't want to waste that pitching rotation you have there in Washington. So great job by the Nationals. For the Pirates, you just dug yourself even further to 5th place in NL Central. And relevancy is far, far away for the Pirates. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll bring up some prospects that will blow our mind, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. So a team, Jacob, before this podcast, you said baseball finally doing some stuff. Like I said, still no free agency. The free agency is dry. But San Diego Padres, they're getting they got a little frisky last week on the trading business as they bring in Blake Snell from Tampa Bay and Yu Darvish from the Cubs. So 2 big arms for that rotation. And it's not like they had a bad rotation to begin with. Snell and Darvish will be joining a starting rotation that includes Mike Clevenger, Chris Paddock, Lamet. They did lose Zach Davies in the Cubs trade, but now they have 5 starting pitchers who are above average to great pitchers in the MLB. Jacob, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts on the new look of the Padres rotation?
So when Clevenger is healthy, I mean, how can you hit off it? It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think the Padres know now that the time is to go all in. Like, this is their time. They feel that they can make the run. And I don't know. I think that it's not necessarily going to put them past the Dodgers quite yet. I think that they might be a year or 2 away. Getting a guy like Blake Snell, who I didn't even notice that he had this much time left on his contract. I thought he had like 2 years left, and seeing he has 3 years left, that definitely buys you a lot of time to really build that rotation up with him and Clevenger especially, and even Yu Darvish now too. But yeah, I think the Padres just got a lot more dangerous. You obviously need pitching in the postseason, and you're loading up on pitching here, so that's going to help them out in the postseason a lot. But for the other teams in it, like the Cubs, I don't know what direction the Cubs are going to go in now. Are they going to start to try to rebuild a little bit? Because Yu Darvish was a huge part of their team, and giving him up. I mean, I understand they got Zach Davies back, and he's pretty good, but he's not Yu Darvish, and it's just interesting to see them give him up. But it's really interesting to see the Rays give Blake Snell up, and I think partially, this is just my personal opinion, I think it's kind of they wanted to get him out of there just because they didn't want to have in the back of their minds the fact that they took him out of the potential game winner in the World Series. So I think that they just had some guilt there and really wanted to get rid of him to any situation. But Padres are the winners in both these trades. And as far as the Rays and Cubs go, Rays maybe not as big of a step backwards, but the Cubs, they might be going to a rebuild now.
Yeah. Brendan.
Yeah, I think, looking at the National League side of the bracket this past year, it was the Braves that we all were looking at as the lone contenders to compete against the Dodgers. I no longer think it's just Atlanta. I think San Diego is right there to take the pennant for their, it's for their taking. I think adding Clevenger, he's not going to have a full season this coming year, but in 2022. And after you already had Chris Paddock, who can be shaky at times, but is definitely reliable. And then Danielson Lemet, who came back from Tommy John surgery a couple years ago and just absolutely dominated on the mound. But now you add two Cy Young candidates for the National League year in and year out. They'll just be competing against each other. Plus, you have their lineup that has just been building and building ever since they traded for Eric Hosmer. You kind of saw that this Padres team was on the rise, and then they had Tatis Jr., then they had Manny Machado. They already had Will Myers and Tommy Pham. They have more weapons, and they have better depth than Atlanta does, and that's something Atlanta was missing a lot of last year. Didn't have great depth in that starting rotation and bullpen. San Diego does. So I think they're ahead of the Braves now and can definitely compete against the Dodgers. Not sure what the Dodgers are going to look like this coming year. Not much is going to change with them, but if it's someone that they're going to want to watch out for, it's San Diego, and it's going to be Slam Diego for years to come.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the Padres are right there as far as it goes, being with the Dodgers. I'm excited to see it. I want them to not only compete in the playoffs, but even compete for that NL West division spot. We'll see. A lot of pitching can win a lot of ball games, and we know that here in Northeast Ohio with Cleveland, pitching wins most of our ball games. But San Diego's adding a rotation to a much better lineup than most teams too. So this could be very exciting times in San Diego as the Padres might be back. Alex, your thoughts on the new look Padres?
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Padres are going to start to come back after this deal. I mean, similar situation with the Nationals and the Pirates. It's beyond me as to why the Cubs would let go of such talent. I mean, kind of like what Jacob said. I mean, yeah, you're gaining the Zach Davies, but I mean, just to let go of Yu Darvish, I think is a huge loss. And I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind it was or where they're going with this, but I think it really lends to the Padres making a huge comeback.
Yeah, something I forgot to say is they gave up Yu Darvish coming off of one of his best years of his career too, where he was right behind Bauer in Cy Young voting. So that also makes this a little more confusing when you think about that as well, because Darvish might be back, and now the Padres might be back to being NL West contenders. So that's it for baseball. As we said, some stuff is happening, still not a lot. Nothing in free agency as we wait for, I think every player in the top 6 has yet to sign. So we're waiting to see what happens there. But that'll take us to college basketball now, as we're starting to heat up now as we get more into the season. We're a few weeks in now. Gonzaga still continues to lead in men's basketball. Baylor and Kansas remain 2 and 3, while Villanova moves up to 4, and Houston coming into the top 5. As for women, Stanford and Louisville stay at the top 2, while NC State moves up to 3, knocking UConn back to 4, and South Carolina holds on to their 5th spot. Brendan, I'll start with you. What games did you enjoy over the past week, either men's or women's, and what games catch your eye in the week ahead?
Yeah. First off, it was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw that Duke women's basketball just completely canceled their entire rest of the season due to COVID, and that's all they said. They didn't say that they had an outbreak or anything, but that was definitely surprising and shocking and something to watch for if it happens to the men's side. But this past Friday, Christmas Day had a huge upset. Iowa lost for the second time in a week to Minnesota in overtime, and then Minnesota showed that they were a really dangerous team in the Big Ten because then they went and took down Michigan State. So Michigan State has been slipping the past couple of weeks. They haven't won a game in the Big Ten Conference this year, and now they're close to falling out of the top 25, something that we weren't really expecting to see. Then last night there was another huge top 5 upset. Tulsa took down number 5 Houston by a point. So it was a really good week for college basketball, specifically the Big Ten. We've been talking about how the Big Ten has been really the main conference this year for college basketball.
Yeah, it has, and we see a lot of their teams in the top 10, but a lot could fall out. Michigan State in jeopardy, like you said. I didn't see the Big Ten coming, and I didn't see Michigan State not being the best team coming as well. I kind of figured Iowa would be up there, but Minnesota proving to be dangerous, Ohio State having a decent season, Northwestern having a good year, Michigan. Just a lot of surprise teams there in the Big Ten. When it gets down to conference tournament time, that could be a really fun tournament to watch, the Big Ten tournament. Jacob, your thoughts?
Yeah, Brendan touched on the games for me, honestly. It was a thrilling way to see Houston lose. I believe there was 0.1 seconds left on the clock whenever Tulsa hit the free throws, so that's just crazy right there. They normally never call fouls that late in that situation, so that's a fun way to end a game, really. And yeah, like how Iowa lost to Minnesota, that was a big surprise to me. But what I was very happy to see from Iowa was the fact that they came back and beat Northwestern right after that. And I think what that shows is this Iowa squad is going to be really battle tested. And it makes me more confident in their abilities in the tournament because they're playing better competition now in the Big Ten. They're going to get better prepared for the tournament. And I think that it's ultimately going to benefit them when they play certain other teams. Like you can potentially run into a Kansas in the tournament. Like other power schools from other conferences, they're going to be better prepared because they're playing them on a daily basis in the Big Ten. And games this week that I'm really excited about, Texas and Kansas is an absolutely huge top 10 matchup. And I really believe in Greg Brown and Andrew Jones and what they're doing down there in Texas. And I don't think that they're getting talked about enough. And I think that this is really their chance to come out and prove that they are one of, if not the best team in the Big 12. I'm expecting a big day from them. I think they're going to win a really close battle against the Jayhawks. And then Houston and SMU, I'm also going to be watching that one really closely because I want to see how Houston reacts to losing such a close game. And SMU is off to a really good start this season too. So I just want to see how Houston reacts to such a heartbreaking loss, and really Northwestern and Michigan too, because I believe in Northwestern more than I did before the season started. And both teams ranked in the top 25. I want to see if the Wildcats can keep up the fast start, and we're going to see if they can really contend in this Big Ten.
Yeah, I agree. As far as your games next week, I'm really excited for that Texas-Kansas game. And all the Big Ten matchups, a lot of top 25 Big Ten matchups happening, but that's bound to happen when you have 9 teams in the top 25. As far as last week, what I learned from basketball in this last week is Gonzaga and Stanford are far and away the best teams in college basketball as far as men's and women's go in their respective sports. And I don't even think it's close right now. Both just everybody that goes out in the court against them, it just doesn't seem like they stand a chance, whether they're ranked, not ranked, or their name is Dixie State. But nonetheless, both schools play very good basketball, and the Big Ten continues to be a fun watch. And I will always say I'm going to watch the Big Ten basketball the week ahead. And once that Big Ten tournament comes around, like I said, that's going to be the conference tournament to watch. And it's going to be interesting to see how many teams can even make it in to the field of 68. So now that takes us to the NBA. As we get more into the conference play and everything, obviously we'll talk a little more about college basketball. But as for the NBA, we're now about a week and a half into the season, or just a week actually. Yesterday marked a week since opening night. And a couple injuries. John Morant, Kevin Love, and Spencer Dinwiddie all out for an extended amount of time with injuries. I think we might be all in agreement on who's the biggest impact. We're going to talk about it. Jacob, I'll start with you. Which of these injuries will have the biggest impact on their team?
So I think the logical answer is John Morant because he's clearly the best player out of all of them. But I'm not going to pick John Morant.
I think we might be on the same page. I want to hear this.
Spencer Dinwiddie sure for me.
Okay.
Because here's what I'm thinking. John Morant, with or without him, Memphis to me is a borderline playoff team.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything. And also, it's the fact that his injury, it's 3 to 5 weeks. That's a long time. It's nowhere near as long as Dinwiddie's. Dinwiddie's done for the year.
Yeah.
But Memphis wasn't going to make any noise in the postseason. I don't think. I don't even really have them making the postseason right now. So without John Morant, it's whatever. I mean, he's their best player, so they're going to struggle obviously, but they're not going to do anything come postseason time. Kevin Love, to me, is not a loss really almost at all for the Cavs, other than veteran leadership, because the Cavs this year are playing really fast and they're playing defense. And I'm not saying Kevin Love can't play defense, but he's a little bit on the slower end. He doesn't necessarily fit in perfectly with guys like Darius Garland, Colin Sexton running the fast break the way that they've been doing, and Andre Drummond with them as well. So I think you can insert Larry Nance Jr. in there. You can insert Jetty Osman in there, and you're perfectly fine still. I mean, you're obviously going to miss the rebounding presence and Kevin Love's ability to stretch the floor, but overall, I don't think the Cavs are going to miss Kevin Love nearly as much as people might think that they would. But Dinwiddie's going to be huge because the Nets relied on him so much last year. And that was, of course, because KD was out and Kyrie was in and out of the lineup nonstop. So Dinwiddie is already well respected by the whole team. He's a great locker room presence. He's obviously an elite scorer too. But what I'm thinking mainly is going to hurt them is what are they going to do about Karis LeVert now? They started Dinwiddie and Kyrie, and it would seem to be working. But now, do you bring Karis LeVert back into the starting lineup instead of going off the bench? Because now even your starting lineup doesn't necessarily have all that great guard depth without Dinwiddie out there. So do you put LeVert in there, which hurts your bench, or do you keep him on the bench and you might hurt your starting unit? So it's just going to be hard, I think, for the Nets to adjust. And when it comes to playoff time, you need those elite scorers. And with Dinwiddie not being there, it could hurt the Nets in the long run. Not saying that they're not going to be contenders still, but I think down the line it's going to hurt them more than these other two injuries will.
Brendan.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Jacob. But at the end of the day, I think in the NBA, when you have two guys like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, your team will be just fine. I'm looking at Memphis and the injury to John Morant and what they could have had. I mean, he'll be back in well over a month, I think I saw. But the win against Brooklyn was mainly because of him and just where he puts the team in the game. I read that without John Morant, the Grizzlies have a 93.6 offensive rating, and in the NBA, that's not really good at all. They're going to be down to Tyus Jones, who is 3 for 21 from behind the arc this year already.
Give me 21 shots. I could probably hit 4.
That's brutal. Yeah, they're still without D'Anthony Melton and Justice Winslow, and like I said, it's proven when he's not out on the court, they're a really bad team. So when you're talking about losing someone who has the biggest impact on a team, Ja Morant, it's just Memphis going into this year, they had the potential to be in a really good position this year, but losing Ja Morant really hurts their team. Kevin Love, I kind of agree with you. He doesn't fit their offensive scheme and the way that they want to play basketball. After watching their first 4 games, how many steals they've had per game and their ability to score off those turnovers, that's not something that he really was playing with when he was with LeBron and Kyrie and that 4-year run. So it's definitely something new to him. And, it's a young team. He just doesn't fit their style of basketball. So.
Yeah, and I agree with Brendan. Ja Morant being the biggest impact. Before he came to Memphis, they were atrocious, and he alone kind of propelled them into that race. You never heard of Memphis in the hunt until Ja Morant came to town. He's definitely going to be missed because of that offensive power he has. But Kevin Love, I think, is going to be a big impact for the Cavs. I think it's going to be in a positive way. They're going to realize that they don't really need him. So when he comes back, he's just going to be an extra piece. I think Larry Nance is better with this fast-paced team. So I agree with you guys there. It's a shame because I think this is going to prove that they should trade Kevin Love, but nobody's going to want to take a aged player who's coming off another injury who's getting paid over $30 million. So it's going to be almost impossible to trade him, so they're going to kind of just have to play it out. But I think when you're running with Drummond, Nance, Okoro, and then Sexland, you have your best 5 out there. Yes, they did say that's the new name for Sexton and Garland, so get it going. The dynamic duo is in Cleveland. But I think Love.
They don't even have Kevin Porter Jr. back yet. So.
That's another piece. Osman also a good piece. Jacob said. I really like the rookie Isaac Okoro for the Cavs. I think he's playing really well. I think Osman's playing really well as well. Yeah. I think both, just since they can play that fast-paced basketball, they fit into the rotation better than Kevin Love. And I really didn't like the Cavs' rotation where they had Drummond, Nance, and Love all on the floor. Love playing the 3. Love cannot be a small forward, especially now at this point in his career. Maybe ripped Kevin Love when he first joined the Cavs and started losing weight, but I don't know. He kind of seems slower now. He's aging. And everybody loves Kevin Love. He even if you're not a Cavs fan, he's just a guy you love. But it happens to the best of players.
Kevin's at the point in his career where Kevin just needs to not have as big of a role that he once had because he just keeps getting injured. I think over the past 3 years now, he's played not even 100 full games. So he's at the point now where he just wants to collect his money and take a smaller role. So I think that's what's going to help him. And actually a more significant one, Okoro is out too for the Cavs. I don't know how long necessarily, but he missed their last game, and he's anticipated to maybe miss a couple more. So it's interesting to see how the Cavs will react to that then.
Yeah. There's a couple guys in the NBA that are day-to-day as well that meant like Kawhi Leonard day-to-day. They really missed him a couple of days ago against Dallas. But, I mean, we saw him, it took an elbow, and it was bloodbath. But didn't expect to see that much blood. But nonetheless, there's always going to be those little day-to-day injuries. And that's what they're thinking with Okoro. It's probably going to be about 2, 3, maybe 4 games. But these 3 guys, obviously a month of basketball is a big thing, especially when you're playing 72 games. You're going to miss potentially 10 to 15 of those games. I mean, 82, it's crazy to think how much of a difference 82 to 72 is when you're missing 15 games. So all 3 of those guys out for an extended amount of time will miss a lot of games for their respective teams. Now let's talk about this first week of basketball. The Magic are the only undefeated team left. They're 4-0. Jacob, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the first week of the NBA? Your biggest surprise thus far?
Well, I think the Hawks are 3-0 still, too. I think that's what they're at right now. 3-0, yeah.
Okay.
So both of them being undefeated is pretty surprising. I would say, though, Atlanta's not as surprising as Orlando because Trae Young's playing out of his mind. Yeah. Trae Young is showing just how good he can be. Can he keep it up? I hope he does. But I don't think he's necessarily going to average 34 a night, maybe 30 a night. That would be something I could see him doing. And the pieces around him, Atlanta looks dangerous. They're probably still a year or two away from making a run in the playoffs, but making the postseason, yes. Orlando, not sure how long they can keep it up. Markelle Fultz is playing really good for them. Terrence Ross is playing really good for them as well. And Vucevic is doing his thing. So maybe they can keep it up, but I don't really see them keeping it up. But my thoughts on the first week of action, before everyone really starts panicking about the contenders like the Lakers, Nuggets, Nets, Celtics, Bucks, and Heat really not like necessarily coming out of the gates and being the undefeated teams. Everyone needs to relax really because some of these teams, such as like the Lakers, the Heat, the Nuggets, they're coming off the bubble and they need their rest. I think what I've seen from all those teams is they're all tired still. Yeah. So it's going to take them some time really to get back into game shape again. And even some of these teams too, like the Nets, for example, they have all these new pieces. The Bucks have all these new pieces. They need to find a way to create chemistry there. So it's going to be a little rough in the beginning. So I think they're eventually going to start to emerge. But one team that I will say that we can kind of overreact about is the Clippers, and that's just because they lost by 50 to Dallas. I know it's one game, but I hated what I saw from them just because it seemed like the Clippers of last year. They just gave up when things got hard, and I think that that's going to be the next step in their growth. They need to show that they can battle adversity well because they haven't done that in the 2 years now that Paul George and Kawhi have been there. So that's a little bit concerning for me. But I also think that the Sacramento Kings look really good, and they look like the smartest team drafting Tyrese Halliburton because he's balling right now.
Yep.
And the Portland Trailblazers, they need a ton more respect than what people are giving them because Portland is just dangerous in this sense that they're long, they're athletic. Derek Jones Jr. and Enes Kanter have proven to be valuable additions as well as Robert Covington. And most importantly, they're hungry. Everybody always counts the Trailblazers out. Damian Lillard is one of the best players in the NBA. I think he can lead them to being a top 3 team in the West. And finally, I just have to talk about the Cavs, obviously, because I am such a diehard fan of them. But they are going to be good this year. Not necessarily top 6, but I think they have the potential to be a 7 or 8 seed. And this is why. There's always these 2 teams in the NBA. Last year, it was the Thunder that – they don't necessarily have that much talent on the roster, but they play so hard that they eventually find themselves in the playoffs. And I think the Cavs can be that if they keep up this style of play. They play great defense, even better defense than what they did with LeBron. When LeBron came back the second go-around, the Cavs chose when they wanted to play defense. This Cavs team thus far has played defense every single game, and that leads to their offense. And in my opinion, they played 4 good games. Even though they lost last night, it's just they missed a bunch of shots, and that's going to happen in the NBA. Still played great defense. I love the identity of running with the ball, getting some pace in the offense. I think that they have the potential to be the 7 to 12 range. Everybody's saying that they're the 15th best team in the East. They haven't watched Andre Drummond play. He's highly underrated this year, and Colin Sexton is an elite scorer, and Darius Garland is starting out his second year like what we thought he could possibly be. So I think you got to watch out for the Cavs being in the 7 to 12 range come the rest of the season.
Love it. Brendan, your thoughts on the first week of action?
Yeah, not much else to say after that.
Jacob broke it all down. Like our NBA guru.
He pointed something out that I don't think we've been thinking about that much, and the fact that some of these teams who are off to a slow start are coming off that bubble, like the Lakers, like the Heat, like Toronto, who's 0-3, their worst start in, I think, over a decade. I mean, they'll slowly and surely get back to playing their style of basketball. I think one team to look at right now and where they're showing that they don't really have an offensive game plan is Milwaukee. They've been hot and cold. They blow out Golden State, and then they get blown out by the Knicks. But then they go out and blow out Miami. last night. So, they're up and down. No one really knows where they're going right now, but it's looking like they're projected upward. You take a look at Orlando and Sacramento and Utah. They're off to really good starts, but I think they're at some point going to die off here. The Cavaliers are my surprise team, but again, I think they're going to die off at some point once they get into the heart of their schedule and start playing some of the better teams in the East. If you put them up against Brooklyn, I don't think they stand a chance. Same with Miami and Milwaukee. So, they definitely have shown that they can play tough on defense, and they definitely have a good flow offensively. But you put them up against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, you're going to get blown out of the arena. So, yeah, it's definitely been a fun week of basketball for the NBA. But again, like Jacob said, it's the first week, long way to go. So.
Yeah, we always see things come together as the season goes on and things take form, the playoff field takes form. But this first week showed that it's a level playing field in the NBA right now. But obviously, like you guys said, things will come together. The normals will start happening. But right now, this first week was exciting. Orlando, Atlanta, Cleveland, I did not think would be the top three in the East after 1 week of basketball. But hey, it's 2020. Weirder things have happened. Also, another thing I've learned from this past week is why James Harden wants out of Houston. 39 points per game through 2 games, and they're 0-2. Balls out, puts 44 and 34 up, and just has no help. I thought he might kind of take it lax, oh, I don't care that I'm playing here. But no, he's coming out and putting points on the board, but nobody's there to help him in Houston, 0-2. In their defense, they did play 2 good teams in Portland and Denver, but still, when you put that much heart in the game.
Yeah, and what we got to keep in mind with Houston too, John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins haven't played yet.
Yeah,
they're just hit with COVID right now. So I still agree with you on that. I don't think John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and even Eric Gordon hasn't played yet. Those 3, I don't think they help him necessarily. But yeah, I'm surprised too that he's actually come out and tried to ball. I think that just shows how badly he wants out of there.
Look, I can put up 40 points with
hey,
him.
I can play. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I can play. Just let me go play for you now. I don't want to play here anymore.
So, poor James Harden. The Rockets probably won't make the postseason this year. But that's it for basketball. So we'll move on to some college football as we get into bowl games. Signing day is over now. So we'll start with signing day. Here's the top 10 2021 recruiting classes. Coming in at 1, Louisiana Raging Cajun. I'm kidding. Alabama, no surprise there. 17 ESPN 300 commits. Their top commit being the number 2 overall player, which is the offensive tackle Tommy Brockermeyer. Number 2, Ohio State. They had 16 top 300 commits, and they got the number 1 overall player in Jack Sawyer, the defensive end. Georgia comes in at 3 with 13 ESPN 300 commits. They get number 11 athlete Smile Mondone. At number 4, LSU, 14 ESPN 300 commits, and they got the number 26 overall player as their best commit, safety Derek Davis Jr. At 5, Clemson, they had 15 ESPN 300 commits, getting number 7 offensive linebacker, offensive linebacker, that makes sense. Outside linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Number 6, Oregon, they got Isaiah Brevard, the number 58 overall player, wide receiver, and they got 13 300 picks. Commits, 7, Florida with 13 as well. They got the number 42 overall player and cornerback Jason Marshall. Number 8, Notre Dame, they got 9 ESPN 300 commits. Their top player being number 39 overall quarterback Tyler Buckner, Mr. California over there in football. Number 9, North Carolina, they're 10 ESPN 300 commits. They got defensive end Keyshawn Silver, who's the number 8 overall player. And rounding out the top 10 is the Miami Hurricanes, getting 8 ESPN 300 commits, including defensive tackle Leonard Taylor, who is the number 6 overall prospect. So, Brendan, I'll start with you. Which signings do you like? Any surprise in the top 10 classes, or did you kind of figure it'd be this mix of teams in the top 10?
Yeah, no. It seems like every year, same teams, and you look at the recruiting classes, look who's making the college football playoff, right? Same teams. Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. A lot of SEC teams here on this list.
A lot of ACC teams too.
A lot of ACC teams.
Kind of
Miami,
surprised by that.
North Carolina. I think the biggest surprise is North Carolina at number 9. I don't think a few years ago they wouldn't have even been in the top 20. But look what Mac Brown is doing down there in Tar Heel country. A name like that can definitely bring in some top recruits from across the country. As far as some of the players go, watch out for Jack Sawyer.
Yeah.
From Pickerington North, right here in Ohio. He's going to be the next Chase Young at Ohio State, 6'5", 230. It's going to be a huge addition to that defensive line, who historically has always been probably the best defensive line in the nation. And then at Notre Dame, landing Tyler Buckner is huge for them. Going to be the next program at quarterback at Notre Dame, coming from La Jolla, California. One of those guys that is a dual threat quarterback, can run, get out of the pocket, and run for that first down, but then also has a huge arm. So you can compare him to Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. A huge commit there for Brian Kelly and the Irish.
Yeah, I agree with your take on the Irish. Tyler Buckner, the first 5-star quarterback commit to the Irish since Jimmy Clausen back in 2007. So that tells you anything. Brady Quinn wasn't even a 5-star quarterback coming into college play. He was actually a 4-star. And since Clausen, Notre Dame's gotten a lot of 3-4-star talent at that quarterback position, including Ian Book, their current quarterback, who is a 4-star prospect. So adding a 5-star prospect who has been undefeated in high school the last 2 years and is Mr. California in football the last 2 years. That's a big state. So that's a big pickup for the Irish, and I agree with Jack Sawyer as well. Ohio State just reloads that defensive end position. Jacob, your thoughts on signing day?
Yeah, Jack Sawyer is a huge prospect for the Buckeyes. He reminds me a lot of Chase Young and the Bosa brothers, so he's going to work out there at Ohio State. Yep. But really, Alabama, I'm just always amazed at what they do on the offensive line. This case with Tommy Brockermeyer, because it seems like every year Alabama has practically their whole offensive line go in the NFL draft. They all get drafted, and most of them go on to have good NFL careers. And then they just completely reload on that offensive line all over again. I don't know how they do it. It's really impressive. And Brockermeyer seems like he's going to be a great guy for the Crimson Tide. And, yeah, it just blows my mind every year to see the offensive line just come and go like that for Alabama. And as far as surprises go, I got to admit, I was surprised to see Clemson at number 5. I thought they would have been higher because I just don't understand, like, with these prospects. Like Clemson, every single year they're competing for a national championship. They're in the playoff, yet they're below Georgia and LSU. And I know LSU's coming off the national championship year, so that's probably why they landed more prospects this year. But Georgia, they've been in the playoff, maybe once or twice since the playoffs started. I would have thought that Clemson would have been in the top 3 range there. And also, this is just something that's always on my mind. The University of Miami U, the U, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I never understand how they still get these top prospects. They really haven't done anything since the early 2000s, and they always get these top classes, and they usually never do anything with it. Now, they're not the only school that does that. Texas has been known to do that in recent years too, getting these high classes and really going 9-3, something like that. But the U, I mean, it's just their fans. They always have excuses for why they're bad, but they always have these top classes, so I don't really know what the excuse is here. So it just surprises me that these consistently good schools, they're also large schools like Oklahoma or Texas A&M, they're not on this list. But you got a school like the U on here that's consistently 9-3 or worse potentially, and they get on here and they don't do anything with the class. So that's the only thing that really surprises me about the top 10 here.
I think it comes down to schools like that, like Miami, like the U. Where is it located? At South Beach.
That's true.
Florida is a huge football state. A lot of nationally ranked high schools down there. So you're getting the talent. The talent is there for the U. People love to stay down there and, the warm, limelight that is South Beach. But then they don't have coaching. They don't have good coaching down there. And, you need coaching plus the good talent to put together wins, and they don't have both of those. So
yeah, Manny Diaz not the biggest name in coaching.
No.
But Jacob, tell me this.
Coach.
Jacob, if you're a top prospect, Manny Diaz comes knocking on your door wearing the turnover chain, and you're not going to commit.
I mean,
the turnover chain. He puts it around your neck. He puts it around your neck and says, "This could be you. Join the U."
I know, but I'm just saying, my mindset would be, yeah, you put the turnover chain on me, but then I can go down to Florida and I can actually go compete for a national championship. Yeah. I'd be wanting to compete for a natty, and I don't think the U is anywhere close to competing for a national championship myself.
No, I'm just messing with you. I agree. It all comes down to coaching, like Brendan said.
Yeah.
But that turnover chain, I wouldn't be surprised if they take that on recruiting visits with them.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind rocking it.
They probably
saying, yo, I'm just going to go to Florida. But, I mean, rocking it one time, that'd be pretty cool.
But, yeah, I mean, Georgia's also in close proximity. They probably land a lot of those Florida prospects, LSU, Clemson, a lot of these southern teams, Alabama even. But Miami, top 10 recruiting class. Alex, your thoughts on signing day?
Yeah, I guess generally, based off of the teams in the top 10 classes, I'm not really the most surprised. I kind of agree with Jacob, though. Some of the order, I guess I would have thought would be different. I honestly thought Notre Dame would have been higher than 8th. I honestly thought it would have made top 5. But nonetheless, I'm not really surprised by the teams that made it. I guess overall, I'm really excited for Ohio State getting Jack Sawyer. I feel like Ohio State has one of the strongest defensive lines in the country, and I think now that they're just adding this to it, I think it's going to be really good for Ohio State. So I'd say of all of them, I'm really the most excited for that.
Yeah, signing day is a fun day. You see who's going to change their mind last minute, flip commits. But I agree, the top 10. I will say this, it's a little surprising to see the ACC being the second most represented in the top 10 with 4 teams. SEC also with 4 teams, but they have 3 of them in the top 5, so that kind of outweighs the ACC there. But the Big Ten and Pac-12 only getting 1 team each. That's where I think it was most surprising. And this kind of shows maybe the Big Ten's falling off a bit. Obviously, Ohio State was far and away the best team in the conference this year. And I think when it came to commitments, a lot of people saw the ACC had a decent year. The SEC always has good years. And when it comes to the Pac-12, you want to go to Oregon. I mean, that's basically it. Big 12, not represented at all. Kind of shows, I mean, when you don't have any teams really playing for anything this year, you had your best team had 2 losses. So that kind of goes to show there that they might fall off. So it's crazy to see how outcomes dictate the top 10 as well. Good year for the ACC. I mean, Clemson, Notre Dame, North Carolina, and Miami were the 4 best teams in that conference. They get in the top 10. Going to be interesting to see with Notre Dame, their future with the conference. Will they join it, or are they back to independence next year? We'll see with that. But January 1st, guys, a couple days away. This Friday, the big day, the college football playoffs. Number 4 Notre Dame, number 1 Alabama will be taking on each other at 4 o'clock Eastern. Alabama is now 20-point favorites in that game. And then number 3 Ohio State, number 2 Clemson, 8 p.m. kickoff. Clemson 7.5-point favorites, as that game has only changed by a point. They were 6.5. Alabama was 17, so the spreads have changed a little bit. This is it. You can change your mind from last week. This is the final score predictions that you'll hear from us, the crew of RaiderZone. 2 days till kickoff. Brendan, what are your final score predictions for these games? Your final lock-in answer.
Yeah, the Rose Bowl, my pick is staying the same, Alabama over Notre Dame. I said it was a blowout last week. I'm going to stick with that. But I think it's going to be even worse. I think it's going to be like 54-14 Alabama over Notre Dame. It's just one of those games where coaching and talent is, the difference is huge. But I'm going to change my pick from the Sugar Bowl. I picked Ohio State last week. After reading more and listening more to Sports Talk, I think Clemson is going to take down Ohio State, and we'll see Alabama, Clemson rematch number 50. I don't think Ohio State has anywhere near enough talent to beat Clemson. And I think having played only 6 games doesn't get you prepared for a game like this. So, yeah.
I think
Alabama, Clemson for the national championship.
I think it'll be rematch 51, not 50.
51? Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah.
But, Alex, your final score predictions, locking them in.
I'm going to have to say between Notre Dame and Alabama, I think Alabama is definitely going to win that game. I'm not going to go as drastic as Brendan, but I definitely think that Alabama is going to win by a little bit of a gap. I'd say a little bit smaller than that, but I still think that they're definitely going to win over Notre Dame. And between Ohio State and Clemson, I mean, I'm still going with the fact that it's going to be a really close game. I'm thinking it's going to be like within a field goal of a difference. I think Ohio State has the capability of beating Clemson, but I just think Clemson still has the fire. I'm not really – right now I'm leaning a little bit towards Clemson, but, I mean, deep down I really want Ohio State to win this game. So I think it's going to be really close, and I don't know. Like I said, right now I'm leaning a little bit towards Clemson, but I think whatever it is, it's going to be – it's not going to be a landslide like Notre Dame and Alabama. I think it's just going to be right there.
Okay. Jacob, your final score predictions. Lock them in.
Alabama, Notre Dame. I don't really think that Alabama's going to cover the spread personally. I think Notre Dame's going to keep it a little bit interesting. I think that Ian Book, I'm starting to come around to Ian Book really. I think that he's going to be okay in the first half or so. And then Alabama's going to eventually pull away. I have it 38-24, but it's not going to be that close, trust me. I think it's either going to be it's close in the beginning and then Alabama jumps out and then Notre Dame might score a couple more times. Or it's going to be Alabama jumps out to a huge lead and then kind of takes their foot off the gas a little bit and Notre Dame comes back in. It's not going to be like as close of a 14-point game, but it's still going to be a 14-point deficit, I think. I just have that feeling that Notre Dame's not going to give up that easily. And Clemson, Ohio State, I'm going to prepare for everybody to disagree with me here, but Clemson is going to destroy Ohio State, I think. I have no confidence in Justin Fields whatsoever in this game. I think Clemson's defense is on a mission. They want to prove that they're still good. I mean, I think they've been on that mission ever since they gave up 47 to Notre Dame. I think Trevor Lawrence wants to end his career with a ring. And like how I said, Justin Fields to me is not going to show up in the moment. He might even still be injured. We don't know. So I'm going to say Clemson 42, Ohio State 17, just like how I said last week. I know that that's really out there. Everybody thinks it's going to be close, but I just don't have any confidence in Justin Fields whatsoever. And Clemson's defense is going to show up, and they're going to beat the Buckeyes. And, yeah, it's going to be rematch number 51.
I'm not changing my picks either. Alabama 38, Notre Dame 21. Clemson 38, Ohio State 17. I don't think Ohio State's that good. I think Fields has been exposed by decent defenses, and Clemson's a whole different monster. And I think Ohio State's defense is nothing to write home about, and T-Law is going to tear them to shreds. If he can put 34 up against Notre Dame's defense, he can put 38 up against Ohio State's defense, if not more. So I'm with you, Jacob. I think the 7.5-point favorite is really shocking to me. I think it should be more, at least double digits. But I think both games aren't going to be really contests. And January 1st is just going to be two teams that have been there before winning ball games. So we'll see, though, this Friday. I hope I'm wrong on both picks because I do want to see a new matchup. I'd rather see Notre Dame, Ohio State. So I hope I'm completely wrong. But I just don't see it happening. I see, like we've said, rematch number 3,000, whatever it is. But that is it for college football. Not a lot happening in the past couple weeks, just small bowls. I mean, we could talk about bowl. What was your guys' favorite bowl game, the Cheez-It Bowl? Did you guys like the Cheez-It Bath? We talked about this before the podcast. I mean, I would be ticked if I was the cleanup crew because Gatorade kind of sinks into the turf, but Cheez-Its might be a little tougher. Your guys' thoughts on any of the weird bowl names or traditions?
I've got the mayonnaise bowl on right now. I don't know what the heck these companies are buying bowl games and sponsoring their names for. Like, it's come to mayonnaise. I don't get it, but I forget what the bowl name was, but it was Coastal Carolina and Liberty, and that was arguably the best bowl game that we've had so far.
Yeah.
Came down. I think it went into overtime, and it came down to a game-winning field goal by Liberty, handed Coastal Carolina their only loss of the year, and that was a really good game. This past Saturday night, I think. I forget what the bowl game name of the bowl was, but that was my favorite so far.
Let's look it up. I can't remember it either. It was the Cure Bowl.
The Cure Bowl, okay. Yep.
Yeah. No, going off. I think it's funny though. Like, you get the bowl full of oranges for the Orange Bowl. You get the bowl full of Cheez-Its for the Cheez-It Bowl. You get a bowl full of mayonnaise if you win this bowl game, Brendan.
I don't know. It's tied up right now at halftime. We'll see if
dip your knife in there.
Wisconsin
make yourself a sandwich.
Liberty pours mayonnaise on their coach.
Oh man, that would be the worst. I'll take back the Cheez-Its. I would be mad if I was the coach and the cleanup crew if I got mayonnaise poured on me. But could you imagine the pictures afterwards? Got mayonnaise all over you. Oh, I hope for the sake of who's in that game. I missed what you said. Wisconsin
and Wake Forest.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I'm praying for those coaches. Don't get the mayonnaise poured on you. That would suck. So now we'll go to the other side of football, the professional side, and that is the NFL. Week 16 was crazy. I told you guys, I told you since week 13, these last 4 weeks are going to be crazy. There is still a lot of clinching that needs to be done. There's still a lot of spots up for grab. In the AFC, 4 spots are still up for grab. And in the NFC, there's 4 spots up for grab there as well. Or 3, sorry. 3 spots up for grab in the NFC as Tampa Bay clinched this past weekend with their win. So let's talk a little bit of playoff implications. The 49ers took down the Cardinals 20-12, knocking Arizona out of that final wild card spot, as now they're looking in from the outside. Buccaneers destroy the Lions 47-7. Tom Brady plays a half of football. Blaine Gabbert back on the map, has a good game in the second half for Tampa Bay as he pours some salt into the wound of the Lions. But the Buccaneers clinch their first postseason berth since 2007. Dolphins take down the Raiders 26-25 in wild fashion. I don't know if I've ever seen a more fun final 2 minutes of a ball game, but Las Vegas is eliminated from postseason contention. I'll say last 4 minutes, honestly. Vegas, they're done. First season in the new city, they don't get to make the playoffs. Jets take down the Browns 23-16. Browns missing their whole receiving core. This makes Week 17 much more interesting because of this. The Browns would have clinched if they would have just won. Steelers take down the Colts 28-24. And after the Browns losing, they can thank the Steelers now because the Colts losing has the Colts looking in from the outside rather than the Browns because the Browns do have that tiebreaker win over the Colts. Bears take down the Jaguars 41-17 as the Bears have come alive these past few weeks as they knew their playoff hopes were thin. They've come alive and now they have that 7th seed in the wild card right now for the NFC. Just trying to hold on to it. And Jacksonville clinches the first overall pick with this win, or loss, so a win for them. Cowboys take down the Eagles 37-17, and Dallas has a chance to win the NFC East after Washington fell this past weekend. Haskins fell as well. He's out of there. Seahawks take down the Rams 20-9. The Seahawks win the NFC West, and the Rams lose Jared Goff. And then the Packers take down the Titans 40-14, proving that they might be the only team that can play in the snow. And the Titans have a chance of falling out in Week 17 now after this loss. Let's talk about these games. Brendan, I'll start with you. Week 16, your thoughts, other than wild.
Yeah, heck of a week. I did not see the Steelers coming back against the Colts. I thought when the Colts went up at halftime, it was going to be the same story as last week when they lost to Cincinnati. But even in that Cincinnati game, Pittsburgh showed signs that they were 11-0 for a reason. It wasn't totally a fluke. So kudos to Pittsburgh and Ben Roethlisberger for bringing them back in that game and clinching the AFC North. They're dangerous, and some people are writing them off. But you're still talking about Mike Tomlin, one of the best it's a Hall of Fame coach, and Ben Roethlisberger, a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, you can't write those two off just yet. As far as some of these other games, Rams, talking about bad luck at the wrong time. Losing Jared Goff, and now I just saw Cooper Kupp is on the COVID list. So he's going to be out for this coming week. LA taking a hard hit this week, losing to Seattle. And then obviously the Browns are going to Brown, losing their whole wide receiving core. And then you lose to a 1-13 team, and now you're on the cusp of not even making the playoffs. That's Cleveland right there for you. And all right, I'll let some of you guys talk about these other games, but it was a wild week.
It was. At least. It was. That Saturday slate really was. We talked about the three Saturday games: the 49ers game, the Buccaneers game, the Dolphins game. All three of those led into what was an even more wild week, especially that Dolphins-Raiders game. Jacob, your thoughts on Week 16?
So before I get into any of the games, I just want to give a huge shout-out to Alvin Kamara and tell him how much I love him, because he brought home a fantasy title for me this week. So thank God touchdowns for you, Alvin Kamara. You were the best Christmas present ever. But before I get into the Browns and how frustrated I was with them, I'm going to talk about some other games. First, the Dolphins. I think that the Dolphins really need to take a look and see if they want to make the playoffs or not, really. Because I think if they want to make the playoffs, you put Ryan Fitzpatrick in there.
Yeah.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick, to me, when he got benched, I thought that was honestly Miami saying, like, oh, okay, we're just not going to win anymore. We're just going to see what we got with Tua. Well, from what I've seen with Tua, I'm not saying he's bad. He's played good, but he hasn't played great. You throw Fitzpatrick in there, he's played great. And Fitzpatrick's the only reason why they're still in this race right now. He led them to a hot start. He saved their butts this week. I mean, I think that Fitzpatrick needs to start in order for the Dolphins just to secure a playoff berth. And if they want to win a playoff game, put Fitzpatrick in there. Yet again, not a knock on Tua. He's played good, but Fitzpatrick, I think, would just be the reason why they'd make the playoffs. And I like what I'm seeing with Mitchell Trubisky. And honestly, this might not be a popular take, but I think the Bears are going to win this week against the Packers, because I just think Trubisky has that chip on his shoulder right now. I know, Brendan. I know. It's just this feeling in me.
I wish everybody could see Brendan's face right there.
Trubisky is just playing out of his mind. I've never seen him play like this. Matt Nagy's job's on the line. David Montgomery's playing well. I think the defense can step up when they have to. I feel like the Bears are going to sneak into the playoffs, and it's all going to be because of Trubisky, which I would have never thought I would have said that a month ago, when basically we're saying the guy's going to be out of the league next year potentially. And then also, Washington football team, Dwayne Haskins should be the most hated man in Washington, D.C. right now. Not only is he an idiot off the field, or was he an idiot when he was on the team, but he is literally taking the Washington football team out of playoff contention right now because he played so bad the past 2 weeks. And I just think it's so just crazy to me that Taylor Heineke comes in and he's a practice squad quarterback and he outplays Dwayne Haskins, not just for this year, but maybe his play last year too. Like, Dwayne Haskins, everybody in Washington right now should be crying tears of joy that he is out of there, because he was just a cancer in the locker room, really. And finally with the Browns, I mean, I hate to say this about him because I've criticized him a lot this year, but I was a little bit upset with Baker Mayfield, just in the sense that he did fumble the ball twice. And I know he didn't have any weapons, but those fumbles, I mean, those were crucial times where they fumbled the ball. They still had a shot to win the game. I'm not fully saying it's his fault, but those fumbles, I think that they were the biggest reason in the end why they ended up losing. Obviously, the wide receivers are a huge part why too. And two, Stefanski's game plan, didn't make that much sense to me too. He just came out throwing the ball when you have nobody to throw to. Like, I understand the running game was stopped, but how could it ever get started when you're not making any effort to try to start it in the beginning of the game? So it was a collaborative effort. I think the Browns are going to bounce back this next week in a very close game, but I'm trying not to get my hopes up right now.
Yeah, the thing with Stefanski's game plan is you can't pass 53 times when you have no receivers. Yes, the run game was stopped, but Chubb only got 10 carries the whole game, so he never had a chance to get started. Yes, 10 carries on 12 yards, but knowing Nick Chubb, you give him 15 carries at 12 yards, could go up to 70.
Yeah, and
That's just how Nick Chubb is.
Sense to me. You have Jarvis Landry available, so like when you have a guy like Jarvis Landry and Rashard Higgins, you come out of the game normally, you're running the ball like 3 or 4 times on the first possession. The first possession of this game, I believe the first play was Baker Mayfield dropping back, trying to hit Austin Hooper with something. Like, what is the sense
they threw
there?
On the first 3 plays and it was a 3 and out. So yeah,
it just didn't make any sense to me, really. Like, how do you expect to win when you have no wide receivers and you just come out and just throwing the ball nonstop?
Yeah, I don't know. Alex, your thoughts on Week 16?
This is why the Browns can't have nice things. Honestly, Jacob, you took the words out of my mouth with Baker Mayfield, because with the Browns, like, I understand you lost so many of your players to COVID, but the whole time, like, all those fumbles that Baker made, I'm just, like, thinking to myself, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I just think that was another major reason why the Browns lost the game to one of the worst teams in the league. And I think what to me most, the Browns now control over their own destiny like they did before. Like, if they would have won this game, they were more assured to go to the playoffs than now. Because right now, you have to pretty much rely on a win this weekend against the Steelers, which is a lot of pressure because personally I would have thought that it would be easier to beat the Jets than the Steelers, but
you'd think
on any given Sunday, I guess. So got out there for a minute.
Yeah, there you go. You're back.
I'm back? Okay, sorry. Were you saying something? I couldn't hear you. You cut out for a minute.
Oh, I was going to say you'd think that the Jets would be easier to beat than the Steelers.
That's my point. Like, you would think, but I guess on any given Sunday, anything can happen. I mean, because that's what I would have thought. I would have thought the Jets would have been an easy win, and the Steelers the one to be pressured for. But what do I know? So I mean, so now you game. They pretty much rely on what other teams do. They have to rely on what Indianapolis does. They have to rely on what Baltimore does. They have to rely on what Tennessee does in order to get into the playoffs. And it's like, if you just would have won this game, then, you wouldn't have to worry about those things because your destiny's still in your control. But now it's kind of out of their hands. And I feel like that's what's the most frustrating because I feel like realistically, they really have a shot. And now it's just with one little, losing the team in the league. I'm not saying that it's not possible for them to be in the playoffs, but it's less possible. I'm the most frustrated about that.
Yeah, we'll get into clinching scenarios here in a second.
I guess
Cleveland does still technically control their own destiny, but they need stuff to happen if they don't win. So we'll get into that in a second. All I got to say from Week 16 is that pass from Ryan Fitzpatrick there at the end of the game, I don't know how he got it off. I don't know how he completed it. And I don't know how he didn't get hurt. That's what blew my mind from Week 16. I kind of want that picture of him being pulled back, blown up, hung up on my wall because it was amazing. And now I'm a big Miami fan this weekend just because I want the Dolphins to make the playoffs. And I agree with Jacob. You need to start Fitzpatrick. The man's got you. The man's got you to this point. And I think Brian Flores is a good coach. I think he kind of knows what he has to do, and I'm hoping he makes the right decision. So let's look at the playoff picture now. In the AFC, the Chiefs, they have clinched the bye. They are the first overall seed at 14-1. So they'll have a week off in the wild card round. The 2-seed Buffalo Bills, 12-3. They are the AFC East champs. They have not clinched that 2 spot yet. but they clinched home field advantage. Pittsburgh Steelers, 12-3 AFC North champs. Again, they could move up to 2. They could stay at 3. But Buffalo and Pittsburgh will be 2 or 3. They both cannot drop down to 4. But they've clinched home field advantage. 4 seed is the Tennessee Titans. They're 10-5. They clinched the AFC South with a win or an Indianapolis loss. And they clinch a playoff berth with a win or Baltimore loss or a Miami loss. For the Dolphins, they're the 5 seed right now at 10-5. They clinch the playoffs with a win or a Baltimore loss or a Cleveland loss or an Indianapolis loss. So Miami has a very good chance at making it. Baltimore 10-5. I wouldn't say a very good chance. Sorry, I should rephrase that because they have to play Buffalo. So that is a tough game. And Baltimore, Cleveland, and Indianapolis don't have the hardest games. Baltimore, they have to play the Bengals. Indianapolis plays the Jaguars. And Cleveland plays a Steelers team that's sitting a couple starters. So Miami, they probably want to beat Buffalo. But Baltimore has 6 seed at 10-5. They clinch playoffs with a win or Cleveland loss or an Indianapolis loss. Cleveland, 10-5, has that final spot. They clinch with a win or an Indianapolis loss. Or, this is another scenario a lot of people don't know, a Tennessee loss accompanied by a Miami win and a Baltimore win. Because they would have the tiebreaker then over Tennessee there. So, in the hunt is the Colts. They're the only other AFC team that have a chance this week, and they're 10-5 as well. They clinch an AFC South. They can win the AFC South still. They clinch the AFC South with a win and a Tennessee loss, and they clinch a playoff berth with a win and a Baltimore loss, or a win and a Cleveland loss, or a win and a Miami loss. So Indianapolis, the only team that does not control their own destiny. They need help in any which way from any of those other 4 AFC teams as far as them losing. Now looking at the NFC. Packers, 12-3, NFC North champs. They clinch a bye with a win or a Seattle loss. New Orleans is the 2 seed at 11-4, the NFC South champs. They clinch a bye with a win and a Seattle win and a Green Bay loss. And then Seattle is the 3 seed at 11-4, NFC West champs. They clinch a bye with a win and a Green Bay loss and a New Orleans loss. The Washington football team have the 4 seed right now. They're 6-9. They clinch the NFC East title with a win or a Dallas loss and New York loss. Tampa Bay 10-5. They clinch their postseason berth. We don't got to talk about any scenarios. The Rams are the 6th seed at 9-6. They clinch their berth with a win or a Chicago loss because they play Arizona. So this is where things get crazy because LA and Arizona play each other. Chicago 8-7 as the 7th seed. They clinch with a win or an Arizona loss. And then Arizona, looking in from the outside, they're 8-7. They clinch with a win. If they beat the Rams, they're in. But if the Rams beat them, they're in. Chicago wins, they're in. The 6, 7, 8 there in the NFC is going to be interesting because 2 of them play each other. Cowboys and Giants still have a chance. Cowboys, they clinch an NFC East title with a win and a Washington loss. And the Giants clinch an NFC title with a win and a Washington loss because the Cowboys and Giants play each other. So, there's that. Here's Week 17 slate. This is going to be... The NFL adding an extra team to the playoffs was the best decision that Roger Goodell and the NFL has ever made because I can't remember the last time I was this excited for Week 17 action. And I can't remember the last time that there was 7 total teams or 7 total spots available with a week of football left. Usually by then, now you're like, everything, you know who the playoff teams are. It's now who's going to sit for seeding and all that. No, there is 4 teams looking in from the outside, battling 11 total teams for 7 spots in one final week of football. Brendan, I'll start with you. Your favorite matchups, and after this week's action, who's your 14 teams making the playoffs?
Yeah, a lot of good matchups this weekend. A couple obvious ones. Browns and Steelers. Browns need that win to get in. Dolphins and Bills should be a good one. And then the Cowboys and Giants both need a win in order to keep themselves alive for the playoffs. But looking at my 14 teams to make the playoffs, well, in the AFC, I've got Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. I think Tennessee wins this weekend and clinches the AFC South. Miami holds on to that 5th spot. Baltimore, easy win this weekend against Cincinnati. Then Indianapolis slips in with that 7th spot. NFC, Green Bay, New Orleans, Seattle, Washington, top 4. Tampa Bay already clinched that 5th spot. And then that 6-7 scenario, really interesting. I think the Rams, who do they play this week? They play, so Arizona, LA. I think Arizona finds a way to win that game. They'll take that 7th spot, and then the Rams hold on to that 6th spot. So those are my 14 teams for the playoffs.
All right. Jacob.
So both the NFC East matchups I'm going to be watching very closely. That would be the Washington football team at the Eagles, and then when the Cowboys are meeting up with the Giants. Those are huge playoff games. Like, let's just call it how it is. Those are playoff games, basically, for those teams, for 3 of the 4 teams. The Rams and Cardinals is just a playoff game the week before the playoffs start, really. So I can't wait to watch that one either. And if Fitzpatrick plays, I can't wait to watch the Dolphins and the Bills. Not saying that it wouldn't be interesting with Tua playing, but I just love watching Ryan Fitzpatrick play, especially after that last throw that he had late in the game against the Raiders, which, by the way, Will, I bet you if Patrick Mahomes made that throw, ESPN would be saying that's the greatest play in NFL history.
Yeah.
We're going to be seeing it for 3 months straight. That just shows how much they love Pat Mahomes and no respect for Ryan Fitzpatrick. But anyways, my playoff teams, I would say Chiefs 1, Bills 2, Steelers 3, Titans are going to win the South. They're 4. But then I think this is where it's interesting. I think 5 is Baltimore because I quite frankly don't think Brian Flores is going to listen to Will and I, and he's going to start Tua, and the Dolphins are going to end up losing this game. The Browns win a very close game against the Steelers. They get 6 because I just think it's just because the Steelers are benching everybody. That's the only reason. And their linebacking core, it's a little bit beat up too. I think they're going to rest more people than what they're letting on. I think the Browns win close, and then the Colts win. They get 7. But if Fitzpatrick is starting, I'm going to say that I would take the Dolphins over the Bills, and then the playoffs from this week would remain the same. So it's all going to depend on what Brian Flores does with Fitzpatrick for me. And then in the NFC, I'm going to say the Saints are the top seed because, like how I said earlier, I think the Bears are going to pull off the upset against the Packers. So I'm going to have the Packers at 2. I think Seattle might lose this week too, personally, because I can see them kind of benching guys in a way when they're playing San Francisco. The game, I mean, it kind of means something for them, but I think that they're going to end up losing to San Francisco this week because San Francisco's been playing a little bit better.
If Seattle loses, Green Bay gets top seed, even with a Green Bay loss.
But what about if the Saints win? If the Saints win, does that mean the Saints pass?
If the Saints win, but the Seahawks lose, Green Bay still gets the top seed with win or loss. That top seed is so weird in the NFC. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I don't know that then. Oh no, you're all good. I would say then Packers, Saints, Seahawks then in that situation.
Yep, that's how it goes.
And then this is the big what if too for the NFC East. If Alex Smith is playing, I'm taking the Washington football team for the 4 seed. I'm sorry, I just can't buy into Taylor Heineke quite yet leading the football team to the division title. If they have to start Heineke, I'm going to say the Cowboys are going to win because Cowboys are a little bit hot now. I never would have thought I would have ever said that they'd be making the playoffs, but no Alex Smith, Cowboys are in. And then at 5, I'm going to Buccaneers. 6, the Bears because they're going to end up beating the Packers. And 7, I don't think the Rams are going to beat the Cardinals. Cardinals are going to sneak in there at 7. And I'm going to be so disappointed because the Rams, to me, were Super Bowl contenders, especially with that defense, and it's just a shame to see what's going on with them right now.
Yeah, you have what happens with Jared Goff makes it a little harder, too.
Alex. I think I was confused with my standings, by the way.
It's all good.
I don't think I did it right.
It's all good.
It's so confusing.
Yeah, there's so many things that can change things. Because if you said 2 Buffalo, 3 Pittsburgh. If Buffalo loses to Miami and Pittsburgh beats Cleveland, which is what you had, that flip-flop.
Yeah, so you need Indianapolis to beat Tennessee to claim the AFC South, and then when Cleveland loses, Tennessee will slip in.
Okay. Alex,
I think.
There's so many. There's so many. Like with Jacob trying to pick the top seed in the NFC, it's like so many things. Like the Saints, they need a win. This team to win. This team to lose. Like it's crazy. Alex, your favorite matchups and your playoff field.
My number one favorite matchup is going to be the Steelers and the Browns. That's still going to be. It's going to be a really good game. I'm going to have all my hope for the Browns. I think the one thing that might help them out a lot is that the Steelers are benching a lot of starters. So there's still some hope, but we'll see with that. I guess a couple of the other games I'm really looking forward to are the Ravens and Bengals, the Colts and Jaguars, and the Titans and Texans, especially. Because I feel like those are some of like the crucial teams. Like depending on what happens there will kind of depend on what happens for the Browns, like in the event that they were to lose the game. So I guess for me, those would be major teams to look out for. As far as my playoff teams, I'm going to start off with NFC. I see the Packers, the Saints, the Seahawks, the football team, the Buccaneers, the Rams. And for my seventh spot, I honestly think the Cardinals are going to make a comeback over the Bears. So I'm putting them in for my last seed for the NFC. And then for the AFC, Chiefs, Bills, Steelers. For my 4th through 7th, again, this is kind of where it gets tough. But I'm going to hope, assuming that the Browns would win this Sunday, it's going to go Titans, Ravens, Browns, and I'm going to go with the Colts as the last seed for the AFC. Again, I'm really hoping that the Browns pull through this weekend, but so going based off of that, that's what I see happening. But again, anything can happen on any given Sunday, like we saw last week. So
just so I wouldn't make any errors in saying my playoff predictions, I ran my 16 predictions for Week 17 through the NFL playoff machine, and it computed my standings for me. So obviously, I'm excited for every game this weekend. Sunday, I'm off. It's going to be a blast. Browns-Steelers going to be a fun one. Bills-Dolphins going to be a fun one. But Jacob, I agree. I think Tua gets the start. I have the Bills beating the Dolphins. So my AFC goes 1 Kansas City, 2 Buffalo, 3 Pittsburgh, 4 Tennessee taking down Houston, 5 Baltimore gets the win, 6 Cleveland gets the win because Pittsburgh resting. I don't think Mason Rudolph can beat the Browns. 7 Colts. And that's my AFC. So Miami, the team left out. And for the NFC, I have the Bears beating the Packers as well. So when Brendan gave me that look, I was like, he's not going to like what I want to say down the road. But I also have Seattle losing to San Francisco. So Green Bay still gets, we have the same scenario going on there. So I have Green Bay getting the 1st seed. New Orleans 2, Seattle 3. My 4 seed is the exact same as yours as well, Jacob. We're in a lot of agreements here. I think if Alex Smith is starting, Washington gets it. If it's Heineke, Dallas gets it. 5 Tampa Bay, 6 Chicago, 7 Arizona, just because I don't think the Rams can beat the Cardinals without Jared Goff. So I think the Rams, even with that really good defense and an offense that can be lethal, they missed the postseason just due to unluckiness. And the Bears, with quite the run, sneak in along with the Cardinals. And that is my take for the playoff picture. Brendan was shaking his head the entirety of my talking. I'm sorry, Brendan. We disagree.
Green Bay's winning and Pittsburgh's going to upset Cleveland. I don't know. It's like that simple. I don't know.
It's in Cleveland, though.
Yeah, but we're the Browns, so.
Yeah, but I just don't think.
Rudolph is going to want so much revenge on Cleveland.
I think Myles Garrett is going to have 5 sacks against Mason Rudolph. I think Myles Garrett's going to play with an extra energy, and that's what's going to make the Browns' defense dangerous. And I think Baker's going to bounce back.
Know if you've got the wide receivers back.
That's true. That's a big piece in whether the Browns win or not. But I don't know. We'll see. Week 17 is going to be fun. I will probably be watching every game I can get on my TV. I'm going to try to figure out a split-screen TV mode so I can watch multiple games at once. I'll have my phone with a game on it. And you know what? I'm going to hook up this other TV on my floor and buy cable for it so I can watch 4 games at once. But week 17...
cable just for this weekend.
What's that?
You're going to buy cable just for this weekend?
No, I actually have cable. I think I get 6 TVs. I'm only using 2, so I could probably just hook it up and get it set up. It's just chilling on my floor. It's only a 32-inch, so it's not that impressive. The 55-inch will have the Brown Steelers.
Go to B-Dubs. Get 20 TVs every game on.
Yeah, but I like my couch better than B-Dubs bar stools.
True.
Nonetheless, Week 17 is upon us. Sunday is going to be a crazy, wild ride. And it's all going to be decide who gets the 7 final spots in this year's NFL playoffs. And now it is time for last call. And this is the in-between week between Christmas and New Year's. So we'll have a couple questions there. Alex, I'll start with you. How was your Christmas?
Honestly, I loved Christmas this year. It's funny because it's like one thing COVID did right, because Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I just kind of spent with my parents and my sister. So we like celebrated small. But honestly, it was fun because, you know, we just got to relax and kind of enjoy doing like little things like for what they were.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, right after podcasting, my whole family and we spent from like 2 p.m. to like midnight in the kitchen just baking and watching movies. And it was fun because like on other years we wouldn't get to do something like that because we'd always be like hustling and bustling to, you know, get to all these parties and, you know, hosting things. So it was just kind of fun to do like those little things and kind of just get to enjoy them. And then like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, we literally spent the whole day in our pajamas and we just like chilled, watched movies. I actually got a deck of Cards Against Humanity for Christmas.
Yeah.
So I filtered out the deck. I love that game. I filtered out the deck to make it cleaner. And I played around with my family, and we ended up going through the deck, and it was the hardest I've heard any of them laugh. So like I said, it's the little memories like that I really cherish. This is probably one of my favorite Christmases.
I filtered out the deck for my parents. A little piece there.
Well, if you've ever seen some of those cards, they can
I know.
They can get bad. So it's like, yeah, I went through the whole deck before and it just cleaned it, like,
Jacob,
make it at least PG-13.
Yeah. Jacob, how was your Christmas?
You know, Will, it was pretty memorable in a way. I mean, it was very different, obviously, because I wasn't with my family really in person. We did it through Zoom. Really only my grandma and then my aunt and uncle came over. But it was still fun. We still had a good time. I know last week I had pointed out how I wanted that Ray Allen jersey from the Bucks for Christmas. Ended up getting that, so that was huge. That thing is a beauty. I love it so much.
There you go.
So, yeah, it was still very different. I still ate a crap ton of food like I always do. I got to see my family. So even though we did it differently this year, it was still memorable and it was a good Christmas.
Good. I'm glad. Brendan, how was your Christmas?
Yeah, no, pretty quiet, which I enjoy. We decided not to Zoom this time around. Like the past few holidays, like Easter, Thanksgiving, that have been hit by COVID. We all Zoomed with our family, but that just gets so hard. It's so annoying when you got like 5 different people trying to talk. It doesn't work. So we didn't do that this year, for Christmas at least. No, but it was pretty quiet. By like 5 o'clock on Christmas, I was on the couch watching Minnesota and New Orleans with my Christmas ale in my hand. So it was good.
My Christmas ale in my hand. Love it. Mine was good as well. I got my Deadpool head that I wanted, sitting up there on my shelf next to my 18-inch Baby Groot figure. And then I also got a Nintendo GameCube. So the retro gaming system is going to start coming together. I'm going to build a little shelf next to my desk to put them all in their own little boxes and everything. But it was pretty good. Got to see all my family. Went over to my mom's. We all wore masks so we could see each other. Obviously, with my sister and I working in a sports bar, we're always susceptible. And then my parents, my mom and her wife both being nurses, there always, so we always just say, let's all just mask up to be safe for each other. It's not that bad, really, but it was really nice getting to see my nephew, my baby sister, open up their presents. My nephew got one of those drivable Lightning McQueen cars, and he still hasn't figured out how it works, so he pushes it, but I'm hoping soon he realizes that he can drive it. But that was really awesome getting to see them open presents. Then on Christmas Day, I got to see my dad's family again, masked up just to be safe. And Rosie and I, obviously, our first Christmas in the house. It was awesome. I got our Nintendo Switch. We've been playing Just Dance like nonstop. I think it's going to be my new exercise as we get into New Year's resolutions. I've burned a lot of calories playing Just Dance, but we'll jump into this one. Brendan, what is your New Year's resolution with New Year's being 2 days away?
I don't really have one.
Drink more Christmas. No.
Not that far. How about just getting the COVID vaccine and getting to an Indians game?
There you go. I love it.
That would be my New Year's. Because you never I'm gonna work out every day. That never happens.
No.
I'm not gonna eat sweets for a whole year. Yeah, right.
January 2nd, I'm eating a cookie. Jacob, what's your New Year's resolution?
Brendan has inspired me here. I'm not saying I want to go to a Tribe game, but the Cavs just allowed 2,000 fans. So I want to be one of those 2,000 fans, and I want to head to a Cavs game. That's probably the resolution. Yeah, the working out thing, I've said that last 2 or 3 years that I'm going to start pumping the iron and everything and getting nice and big and strong. That ain't happening now. So let's just focus on the Cavs right now.
All right. Alex, your New Year's resolution.
I'm going to kind of go with the corny one. I said last week that my Christmas wish was just to be happier. So I'm going to make that try to come true this year. I mean, my resolution is just to be happier because I feel like after a crazy 2020, all that's going on had a huge mental toll on me, especially, as much as I think it did a lot of people. But I just feel like happiness is something that could be taken for granted. So whatever happens this coming 2021, I'm going to try to take it with a positive stride and just try to be happier. I know it's kind of like those ones that you say every year, I'm going to work out every day, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to try to put it at that. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to hope that it's for the best.
There you go. I got a couple. So I got a wedding coming up in October. I need to get into my wedding body, look good for the bride. So my goal is to lose some weight. I'm going to start slow. I'm going to say I have 3 days off a week. Once school starts, I have the nights open those 3 days. Play Just Dance for a couple hours, 3 days a week, and then maybe get more into a real workout. But one of my New Year's resolutions as far as golfing goes, Tannenhof, the golf course here in town, they said, what's your New Year's resolution? Tag somebody. Maybe you'll win a free round of golf. My New Year's resolution is to continue to improve in the sport and maybe even shoot par in an 18-hole round. That's my goal for 2021. My goal should be this, to get under 40 in one round. But I'm going to shoot high. Let's go if I could knock my score down 20 strokes last year, I could knock it down 8 more, or my career best is 41, so 5 more this year to just get a par. That's my goal for 2021. So now we'll do one more. It's a little sports driven. Jacob, what is your Super Bowl matchup going into Week 17? Who are your 2 teams that you're picking right now? Obviously, this changes every week, but who are your 2 teams right now?
Yeah, I've stuck by the Chiefs all year, and I'm still going to stick with them. But honestly, the Bills are making a push for me to potentially overtake them. But I'm going Chiefs right now in the AFC. And the NFC, I have no clue because I was stuck on the Rams there for a while just because of that defense. And now, obviously, they're not even going to make the playoffs potentially. So I think Drew Brees is going to get healthy eventually. And I think that his connection with Alvin Kamara is just going to get them to the Super Bowl as well as their defense. Their defense has been really good this year. So right now, Saints, Chiefs, and I'd probably have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl again right now.
Okay. Brendan.
I'm going to disagree on both. I think the Bills are on a high right now. And as good as Pat Mahomes is, and as good as that Chiefs offense is, there's been a few weeks where they have really let me down. They've showed signs of weaknesses, almost losing to New Orleans, almost losing to Miami. So I think the Bills, I think that's going to be the AFC South Championship. I mean, just the AFC Championship. And I think Buffalo wins that one. And then I see Green Bay coming out of the NFC. Aaron Rodgers playing the best football of his career in a long time right now. And I think Aaron Rodgers somehow gets his second ring this year.
Alex, your Super Bowl prediction for right now.
See, I'm thinking the Chiefs are gonna go for AFC, and I think they'll be the ones to win it. But as far as NFC goes, I'm going with the Packers.
Super Bowl 1 rematch.
Yeah.
Where it all started.
I'm thinking. I think it's gonna be those two. I think the Chiefs are gonna end up pulling through and winning, but I feel like those will be the top two.
Two MVP candidates going at it in the Super Bowl 1 rematch. I love it. And then, Brendan, you took mine. Two of the better, when you talk about NFL fan bases, what comes to mind? Buffalo, Cleveland, Green Bay. Three of the best fan bases out there. The up north teams, they fight through the cold even when their teams play.
Those are the three that come to mind.
What do you? I would say
Green Bay, sure. I would say Chicago.
Yeah, that's it's the teams up north. I would
not say Cleveland.
I would say Cleveland has a pretty strong fan base.
Cleveland Raiders fans are quite crazy.
Cleveland was
Chicago.
They did a ranking on this, and Cleveland got number 1.
What?
No matter how bad Cleveland is, they always sell out in the cold.
Yeah, well, we're delusional. So.
I'd say Bills Mafia, Cleveland, Lambeau Faithfuls. I give you Chicago. The northern teams, the teams that bear the cold for teams that are sometimes not that great. But I'm going to go Browns Bears. I'm kidding. I'm going to go two big fan bases. I'm going to go Packers. I'm going to go Packers Bills. Just like you said, Brendan, the Bills are playing really good football now. Josh Allen getting no respect when it comes to MVP. And then for the Packers, I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's playing really well. Him and Devontae Adams have a great connection. Aaron Jones running really well. A.J. Dillon running real well. The defense playing well in Green Bay. And the thing about Green Bay and Buffalo, the weather has not impacted their offenses at all. And that's why I think it's going to get them through, because we know they're both going to be higher seeds. They're going to be hosting some playoff games, and they play well in the cold weather at home. So I'm going Green Bay Buffalo as of right now. But that could change. My mind could change next week. If Miami beats Buffalo, Green Bay falls to Chicago, you start to wonder, oh, maybe the Bears, oh, maybe the... But the Browns-Bears would be a fun one. But I want to go right now Packers-Bills. And that is going to end episode 9 of RaiderZone. Does anyone have anything else to say before we part our ways?
Can you imagine the Browns ever making a Super Bowl? I mean, that would be awesome.
The stadium would fall into Lake Erie. You thought the Cavs parade was big. Jacob, I know the Cavs, but yeah. If the Browns won a Super Bowl...
Well, I've always said this. The Cavs, they had, 1 million fans at their parade. I think the Browns would easily get 3 or 4 million. And then I could literally see buildings burning down. I could literally see Tower City coming down to the ground because that's how crazy that city would go.
Oh my gosh, man. I went to the parade back in 2016.
Yep, me too.
We all did, right? Yeah.
There'd be an outbreak. In Northeast Ohio if the Browns won a Super Bowl. The COVID would never go away. But that's for sure. 4 million people in one city. So that's it.
Happy birthday, LeBron. Speaking of the Cavs.
Yeah, happy birthday, LeBron.
Yeah, happy birthday, LeBron.
Oh, what is he? 25? Playing like it.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
So, thanks again, guys, for talking sports with me. This was episode 9. We'll be back next week for episode 10 as we talk college football playoffs, some more basketball, the playoff picture in the NFL, and we'll make some predictions going forward from there, and we'll talk about the college football playoff championship, make our predictions as far as that goes. For Brendan Devaney, Jacob Butar, Alex Patron, I'm Aubrey Enza, and we thank you all again for listening. As always, go Raiders, and have a happy, happy new year.